Okay, welcome everybody. We're just waiting for them to set up a couple more tables. It's another great turnout. Please stand and join us with a moment of silence, and then let's join in the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. My name's Todd, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety birthday is January 31st, 2018. Welcome to the 7 p.m. Thursday night meeting, the Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Before we get started, please remember to turn off or silence your cell phones. Thank you. We send a special welcome to any visitors from out of town. Is there anybody from out of town tonight? Also, anyone who may be visiting the Treasure Map meeting for the very first time. There we go, over there. And your name is? Hi, Linda. Finally, is there anybody here who is at their very first Alcohol Anonymous meeting? Please stand and be recognized. The Treasure Map Group of Alcoholics Anonymous believes in working the 12 steps as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor. There are many home group members here tonight that are willing to be sponsors. If you're new or if you don't have a sponsor, you can stop at the side table over here during the break or afterwards and see Scott for names and phone numbers of people in the group who are willing to sponsor others. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and to help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We're self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Our meeting tonight will focus on step 2. Our big book study will begin shortly. If you need a big book, please raise your hand and we'll bring one to you. Everybody got a big book? We need a couple over here. The meeting, like I said, tonight will be on step 2. Our speakers tonight are Erica is our short speaker, and Tom will be our long speaker. I have several announcements tonight. Like I said earlier, this is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're really glad you're here. In keeping with our singleness of purpose, with our singleness of purpose and our third tradition, which states that the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking, we ask that all who participate confine their comments to their problems with alcohol. We want to make special mention to our online listeners. We have heard from many of you and are trying to make your experience with us even better. If during this meeting you experience a lapse in hearing us, please post a note on our secret group face page. We will be monitoring it throughout the meeting. Monthly online fulfillment of Tradition 7 is available. Any support of the Treasure Map meeting goes to support our meeting and its bills, events, speaker costs, birthday celebrations, and newcomer welcoming meetings. To begin online Tradition 7 fulfillment, see Scott at the side table over here, or visit www.treasuremapmeeting.com. In addition, the Treasure Map Group is a proud financial supporter of the local Sioux Falls Intergroup, Southeast South Dakota AA, District 5, AA statewide in South Dakota, Area 63, and worldwide AA through World Services in New York. Also, if you give online, please grab a tag and place it in the basket as it's passed. And then we do have 12-step cards. I think they're on every table. It's a great way to introduce yourself. You can put your name and number on those. It's just a great way to do some 12-step work. Don't forget about our free Big Book study worksheets at www.treasuremapmeeting.com. Many are using these sheets to assist in their own personal Big Book studies. Complement their sponsorship duties and aid in their step work. These sheets should not be considered as the final word on the Big Book. Only one guide that has been helpful to us. We realize we know only a little. Let's see, that one's done. That one's done. I do have some announcements here, I promise. There's a few sheets around on the International AA Convention that's coming up July 2nd through the 5th in 2020. And we are going to be co-sponsoring a bus trip. If anybody's interested, get your name in early. I'm sure it'll fill up. District 5, we're looking for corrections and treatment committees. We're looking for folks to run the meetings in the Minnehaha County Jail, Work Release Center, South Dakota State Penitentiary. Background check is required, minimum of 3 months of continuous sobriety. Contact Matt M at mcexpert.com. June 27th, which is on a Thursday, we will be having our group conscious meeting. Anyone that's a home member, I would recommend that you attend. We get a lot done in a short time. May 12th, 4:30 p.m. at Westside is the 2020 Fall Conference meeting. Getting ready for that. It's coming up. Again, if you weren't here last week, I'm sorry. Thanks for attending the workshop that we had down at Broomtree. It was a great time. Now, if you'd please welcome Peter to read how it works.
All right, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot and will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. Seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in the general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us, but there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory and whom we were wrong promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What in order? I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we are alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
Now let's please welcome Brian to read the 12 traditions. As we pass the baskets, thank you in advance for your generosity and support. Tradition 7 states, that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions.
My name's Brian. I'm an alcoholic. The book. And these are the 12 traditions. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2. For a group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in a group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3. The only requirement for AA membership is the desire to stop drinking. 4. Each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6. An AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. You're welcome.
We talk a lot about home group membership at the Treasure Map group because we believe it is vital to our recovery. What does it mean to be a home group member? Here are a brief excerpt from the AA General Service Conference approved pamphlet on the AA group. Traditionally, most AA members through the years have found it important to belong to one group that they call their home group. This is the group where they accept surface responsibilities and try to sustain friendships. And although all AA members are usually welcome at all groups and feel at home at any of these meetings, the concept of the home group has still remained the strongest bond between the AA member and the fellowship. With AA membership comes the right to vote on issues that might affect the group and might also affect AA as a whole. A process that forms the very cornerstone of AA's service structure. As with all group conscious matters, each AA member has one vote, and this ideally is voiced through the home group. Over the years, the very essence of AA's strength has remained with our home group, which for many members becomes our extended family. Once isolated by our drinking, we find the home group a solid, continuing support system, friends, and very often a sponsor. We also learn firsthand through the group's workings how to place principles before personalities in the interest of carrying the AA message. Talking about her own group, a member says, "Part of my commitment is to show up at my home group meetings, greet newcomers at the door, and be available to them. Not only for them, but for me. My fellow group members are the people who know me, listen to me, and steer me straight when I'm off in left field. They give me their experience, strength, and AA love, enabling me to pass it on to the alcoholic who still suffers." If you are interested in making the Treasure Map meeting your home group, please see Scott at the side table at the break or after the meeting. And now it's a pleasure for me to introduce Erica for our 15-minute speaker.
All right, thank you. Yeah. I'm 6'2", so I gotta get it up a little bit. Hi, I'm Erica, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is January 30th of 2018, so I've been sober just over a little, about 15 months. So I was really happy when Mike asked me to speak tonight. I've come down to this group a couple times. I actually work here in Sioux Falls now, so I'm from Madison, and it's great to get out and meet new people in the program. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with step 2. So came to believe in a power greater than ourselves. So I was sitting and thinking about this, and I often say this in meetings in Madison, but if you would have told me 16 months ago that I was going to believe in a power greater than myself, I would have laughed you right out of the room. I had no concept of anything greater than me. I thought that I could do it all. I went to church when I was younger. I grew up in a household, I would say we went to church, but spirituality wasn't really an important part of my life ever. And what was important in my household was doing it yourself, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and getting on with your life. You don't pout, you don't complain, you don't feel sorry for yourself, you just do it. And I think being in that situation and always struggling with how I felt about myself was just really hard. I had problems with depression and anxiety when I was younger, and my parents really wouldn't take me to the doctor for it. They would put me on some medication and then take me off of it. And my dad would just tell me to get over it. So when I found alcohol when I was 14, that solved all my problems. I loved it. I finally had found that release I was looking for. You know, I didn't have spirituality. I didn't have a higher power to turn it over to. So I could turn it over to alcohol. Alcohol was always there. And I grew up in a very small town in northwestern South Dakota, so at that time in my life, I was like, well, what else do you do when you live in a town of 400 people? You go out and party on the weekends. So I did that. I got in quite a bit of trouble when I was younger. But, not enough to think that, maybe there was something different about me or wrong with me. I'd always known that I drank more than other people, but I always did mainly the right things. Like I said, I'd always get out of things, or, I would drink on the weekends, but then I would go and be in the school play, or I was in basketball, or all those kind of things. I did all the right things to make sure that I could get by in my life. And then, like I said, still not have God in my life. Then I went to college. The anxiety, the depression was still really bad. Drank through college. And I remember at one point in college, my freshman year, I couldn't even go to class anymore. And I was a good student, couldn't go to class. So I was finally treated for anxiety and depression as well. And that kind of helped. But again, I never was able to talk to a power greater than myself and to turn it over. So again, I made alcohol my higher power. Again, I didn't think anything of it when I was in college, because college kids drink. That's what they do. There was a particularly bad night that ended me up in a hospital the next day, and it was kind of funny because one of my friend's mothers that I'd known really well had called me. My parents had to come down and get me out of the hospital. And then I went home and she called me. I was probably 22 at the time. And she asked me if I wanted to go to an AA meeting with her. And I was like, I'm not an alcoholic. Again, I'm a college kid. I'm fine. I'm getting good grades. This is all fine. So fast forward a few years, I'm married. I have, I'm in Madison now. And I'm married, I have one kid, and I'm still drinking really heavily. I was a binge drinker, I was a blackout drinker, and those times are getting closer and closer together. And I decided, well, I didn't decide, my husband decided for me that he was going to drop me off in front of an AA building and then leave. So I got to go to my first AA meeting, and that was probably about, I can't remember how many years ago that was. It was probably about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And I got there, and I could admit at first my powerlessness over alcohol. It could never get to the God thing. I could never get to the higher power thing. And what I always struggled with was it's not tangible. I always thought, like, I can't see God. I can't see him doing anything in my life. And I just wasn't looking. I was never slowing down to look. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to believe that I had all the power. And I always felt like I was too smart. I always thought people that believed in God were helpless and needed that, extra just boost to get them through life. I really looked down on spirituality and religion terribly. I recall a time, and this is a little bit later on in my life, but when my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer, and she gave me a worry stone that had faith on it. And I'm like, why? What are you? She had faith and she was dying of cancer. And I just looked at her, I probably made a face. I hope that I didn't. And I just kind of said, oh, thank you. And even at that point in my life, I could not see, what faith could do in my life. So I was in AA for about a year. Didn't really get past step one, but I was sober. And then I ended up leaving AA. I got pregnant, stayed sober through the pregnancy, and I had about 3 years of sobriety in. And then I decided one night, innocently enough, that I wasn't like the rest of you people, because I had never drank in the morning. That was the other thing I always told myself. I was like, well, I never drank in the morning. Well, I didn't do this. Well, I did that. I always had to measure myself to what you were telling me. And if I wasn't there, if I wasn't as bad as the baddest case in the room, then I couldn't be an alcoholic. Couldn't. So then I wouldn't have to, surrender myself to a God, in my understanding. So went back out, and it was, I think the night I drank, I had 2 drinks. So I was like, all right, I got this handled. I can do this. It's fine. Slowly, it just became more and more and more and more. I would say, like all of us say, the next morning, I'm going to quit. I'd hang on to 2 months of sobriety. Wouldn't go back to AA, but I'd white knuckle it for 2 months. And then I would drink, maybe a couple times. Then I'd white knuckle it for a month. And then I drink again. And then it was 2 weeks. And then it was a week. Finally, it was down to days. And at the end, I was drinking around the clock. I would wake up and I'd start drinking at 6 in the morning. I went to a job. I had a pretty decent job, and I drank at work the whole entire time. I worked at a healthcare facility and drank there. And I pretty much decided that I was an alcoholic and I didn't care anymore. I had said to my husband at the time that I did feel like my kids didn't deserve this. They didn't deserve to have an alcoholic mom. They didn't deserve to, I remember, painful trips of me coming home from something so drunk, throwing up in the back seat with just no recollection of what's going on. My kids screaming in the front. I do remember them screaming because mom's, what's mom doing in the back seat? Or there was times my daughter would find me laying and passed out in a pile of my own vomit, but that was enough to make me stop. I didn't care. And then one day, it would have been January 29th of 2018, I was at work, and, I never got in trouble with the law. I don't know how. I drove my kids around. Clearly, I'd take them to school drunk, pick them up drunk. At noon, on I think it was a Monday, I called my husband, and I was drunk by then, and I was at work, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I don't know why. Didn't at the time, did not know why. I said, I can't do this anymore. And he goes, well, what are we gonna do? I'm like, I don't know. I knew I had to detox. I knew that I couldn't just, just quit. I needed to go somewhere, but I didn't know what to do. The first time I got sober, I called treatment centers, and they said, oh, it's gonna be like 4 weeks. It's gonna be how many weeks? I'm like, well, I'm gonna go now. So can you get me in now? No, okay. So I was like, well, let's drive down to Sioux Falls. We drove down here, and I stopped I didn't know what I was gonna do. Stopped at some of like the urgent care places. They're like, go to the ER. I'm not going to the ER. I don't need to go to the ER. So I called down to Keystone, and they said, well, we'll do an assessment over the phone. I'll call you back. I was like, okay. They're like, we'll call you back in an hour. I'm like, an hour? They're not gonna call me back in an hour. It's gonna take me 4 weeks, whatever. I'm not gonna be ready in 4 weeks. I'm not probably gonna go. They called me back in an hour and said, can you be down here tonight? Like, all right, here we go. We're going to treatment. So from the time that I decided that I was going to treatment at noon that day, I had 7.5, 8 hours, and I was already in treatment. I look back on that now as God working in my life. He knew that I needed that. I listened to him finally in my life. I didn't know it at the time. When I said I wanted to stop, that was my higher power telling me that you need to take this chance and you need to listen to me. And I did, and he's always been there. I just never stopped to realize it. I never stopped to listen. I always turned my back. I always thought I was too smart. And I was always a little bit jealous of people that had spirituality. I'd always look at them and be like, why? As much as I hated it, as much as I'd loathe you for it and think you were just gullible, in deep down inside, I wanted that feeling. And that's what I found in alcohol, was that feeling. And so I went to treatment, and of course, in treatment, I had another spiritual experience. And the interesting thing, and I think I read this somewhere, I heard it, we don't sometimes know we're having a spiritual experience till afterwards. And I didn't know I was having one when I went to treatment. I didn't know at treatment I had one, and they just kept coming. And as long as I took time to look and reflect on what was happening in my life, I could see the miracles happening. It wasn't like a big thing that happened like right in front of me. I knew right away. It took me a few days, but I eventually figured it out. Like, that's my higher power working in my life. So I guess, and I, with my life now, I'm praying every day. I have a conscious contact with God. And like I said, I think back to 16 months ago, and I had no concept of what a higher power was. Even with being in AA, I never listened the first time I was in AA. I didn't want to. I didn't want to believe that I was an alcoholic. I wasn't like you. I am like you, and I'm happy to be like you. I love it here. I finally found people that I can connect with, and people that have shown me that I'm worth it in my life, and people that I hear God speaking through. Just the other day too, and then I'll kind of be done here. My daughter, she's 9, she'll be 10. She, I don't say, just for today to her or anything like that. We were talking about something, and it was pretty heavy, and she goes, Mom, you just gotta stand today. You can't think about yesterday, and you can't be looking towards the future. And what a wonderful gift now that I know that's my higher power. When I was drinking, I would have never thought that. I would have been like, the heck are you talking about? You know, it's that awareness finally of these miracles that are going on in my life. And I'm just really, really happy that I came back. And I'm really happy that people welcomed me back with open arms. And didn't say, well, you didn't get it the first time. You know, they've worked with me and they've been there for me and they've had patience with me. So I'm blessed today. You know, it's not every day isn't easy, but I know I can turn those things over to my higher power now. And I don't have to rely on alcohol to get me through. I can rely on my higher power. I can rely on my group. And, you know, everything's been good. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. That was awesome. Kind of my story a little bit. We're going to take a short 10-minute break. If you're a smoker that's done outside, I'll meet out there with you. Just properly dispose of your cigarette butts when we're done. So, all right. Hi, Megan.
You know, I never started.
Out of your way here, Tom.
So I don't know, you know, you go to those stupid doctors and. Finding out all of that. Yeah. Oh, and they make me depressed. Yeah, I think they're moving. It sounds familiar.
Actually, they give me a little more. Yeah, they only give me 5 days.
Yeah.
And then, but I
This is the worst I've had it for a lot. I used to have, yeah, that I call it the 6-pack. And the 6-pack was predatory, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the first time they gave it to me at work. Then I woke up one morning with no voice. And so I went back and said, they put me on it again. I got one pill left. Now already dead. The CAT scan on the mind. Last week.
No, I don't see it. The thing is, I use it like 9 months. Living the dream, it sounds like. That's northwest. This is 9. They're only here for years. It's the craziest thing, just decided well, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. That's real. This is a synthetic. No, I did you don't read. We're fine. You say that? That might be.
The older I get, the scarier it is.
No. Every now and then. Have a decent. I mean, that was what. I wouldn't do any damn good. Yeah, I don't know. I loosened up now.
Yeah, I might have been all over the fella. You should have known me when I released the little stuff.
No, I got my longboat started.
Okay, we're back. If we could maybe take a seat and we'll get started with Tom.
Call me like this? I didn't think so. Not
Come on. All right, if everybody could help me in welcoming Tom from Madison. He's going to be our long speaker.
I'm Tom, and I'm an alcoholic. Great to be sober. Great to be here by grace, God's grace and the fellowship of AA. It hasn't been necessary for me to take a drink of alcohol since August 17th, Wednesday evening of 1983. And for that, I am very, very grateful. There are a couple people here this evening that were there at the first meetings I went to. I tried to figure out how to share what my first meeting of AA was like with you tonight, but I don't know any foreign languages. I know there was a lot of talk, but I was so busy taking everybody's inventory to figure out who was there. Let's see, there's a couple attorneys I know, and well, there's used car salesman there. I remember that. I was so busy doing that. Of course, that's what I did. I mean, that's what we do. We're always checking to see, make sure our back's covered, checking to make sure that we've got everything under control, or at least I was. And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for Edie. Thank you. We did the first big book study that I remember at Bill and Edie's house. And that's kind of how it all began. My first meeting, I remember, there was a lady, her name was Carol T. And I was all dressed up and looked good, had on my best boots and sport coat. I came to AA. I've belonged to a couple other, the Kiwanis, and belonged to some other things in town. I assumed you came here and did the same thing, you know. Wanted to make sure I didn't miss out. Somebody gonna run for office, I might get, you know. At the end of the first meeting, or that meeting, I remember Carol taking my hand at the end of the meeting and saying, Tom, things gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. I had no clue really what she was talking about. And it wasn't funny, but Erica talked about it before. And if there are spiritual experiences that happen for us that we aren't even aware of, that was one. That was one. I suppose this meeting is the most prepared I have ever. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting old, I think, but I'm really prepared tonight. And I'm more nervous. I used to, when I grew up in a family that was a great family. my father and my grandfather were in business together. They farmed and raised cattle and registered cattle and fed cattle. And we worked, basically got up at sunrise and went to bed at dark, and worked hard. And we planned on raising cattle to show so other people would come in and look at them and buy them. And the plan, obviously, was to win. You didn't do it for the fun of it. So I learned how to work, and I learned how to win. I was successful in school. Did well in sports. I'm as nervous tonight as I was. I remember I ran the mile. Can you imagine if I just could have been taller? How fast I could have been? I went to the state in the mile, and one of my problems was I'd throw up before every, they get so nervous, couldn't stand it. Well, tonight I didn't throw up, but I think I've been to the bathroom 3 times. And that's not atypical. But our family was also really dysfunctional. We had to win, and we had to work, and there wasn't time off. We never took a vacation. Our vacations or our breaks were to go to a bull sale, a stock show, haul cattle to the sale barn, do whatever. Doesn't sound bad at all, and it wasn't. I had a problem because with God, I assumed he circled. There used to be a little Lutheran church in Melford, Iowa, and I knew for sure that God, he was at the steeple on that church watching what I did. I knew the 10 Commandments because I had to memorize them to be confirmed. And I had to perform to that pinnacle of success with God, just like it was necessary to do all the other stuff. I did have a problem or two with my dysfunction. I was anuretic until I was about 9. I wet the bed. That was a bummer. You don't know what to do about that. And when you pray to God for that, and you ask God for that, and it doesn't quit, tell me about the power. Tell me about understanding the power, is my question. I didn't understand it. I knew God, didn't understand it all. And critically, we raise cattle. So this time of the year, you're getting calves. And so in 2 or 3 months, we don't brand cattle here, but you castrate them. And I remember one night when I was probably 6, I slept in the upstairs room and above the living room, and there was a hole in our older home where the heat could come up. And I was laying there, and my folks were talking about my problem. And the conversation I could hear. And one of the things they were talking about in the end of the conversation is, how do we fix this? I heard, how do we fix him? You know what you call what you're doing when you castrate steers, what we're doing with them? We're going out to fix them. We're going to go out and fix this group of calves. I'm 6 years old, and they're going to fix me. I'm 6. Maybe that would have been a solution. But I remember praying to God. I remember praying to God, asking God for that to change. I remember praying to God through the years and trying to find that power. It says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I remember praying to that power, praying to God, walking in the moonlight back from the pasture, being rejected when I'm a teenager by this absolutely beautiful gal. And I didn't really understand why. I'm possessive and pushy and didn't matter. I was mad at God. It was his fault. I'm looking for power. I knew where the power was. I didn't have to worry about money. Now that's unbelievable in the world today. I am so grateful that I had the opportunity to grow up with parents and grandparents that had foresight and vision and love and cared for us, and were able to gather together bucks enough to make it. So I didn't understand, I didn't know about not having money, but that can be a bit of a problem too later when you have to be responsible for how you're spending it. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because in the late 70s and early 80s, my world had gone completely to crap. My businesses, I'd been involved in one here in Grand Forks and Billings, and everything in the mid 70s worked. It didn't matter what we did. There were a bunch of us guys together, and we worked together, and we made it work. It worked. Well, and I was a member of Minnehaha Country Club, and playing golf with guys that had, well, let's see, how many million do you need to be God? They had money. My friends had money. And I did too. And who needs God? My point is, I didn't turn to God for help whenever I got in trouble. I'd pray to God to get me out of, and that the cop that I just met when I'm coming back from Brookings, going down the interstate the other way, 85 miles an hour in a 70-mile-an-hour zone. Oh, God, I hope that's just the cop. I hope he doesn't turn around. When I first drank alcohol, I liked the effect. It worked really well. But that dysfunction I had with the family, that dysfunction I had understanding God, alcohol, because of the loneliness. It's hard to describe the loneliness that occurred in those dysfunctional moments when you're by yourself and you don't get it. You don't understand why. It makes no sense. What's cooking? Why is that happening? Because I was winning. I was making money. I was doing the things everybody thought I should be doing. In 1963, I was fortunate enough to be one of the guys that went to Europe on the ag travel course from Iowa State, and we spent the summer, about 3 months, studying in Europe, 20 of us. I didn't drink in college, and I hadn't drank until then. I was in college at 17, and so that would have been 19. I was 2 years later. I was on this trip. No drinking. We went several places, but most of them were embassies or colleges. When we went to St. Peter's, we visited Notre Dame. We got to see some really neat spiritual cathedrals. I walked through St. Peter's awestruck. It was like to me, very honestly, being here tonight with you. Because I'm in awe that you're here sober with me. I'm amazed. I'm not alone. And I walked through St. Peter's, and it's beautiful. In the Sistine Chapel, on the you know. Whoa. But when I walked out the front door of St. Peter's, the Pieta was by the front door of Mary holding Christ. It was so real. I stood there, I backed up a little bit, and I cried. I just started to cry, and I just cried. Why? You know? What was that about? God is really something. It's amazing. It's amazing. A couple nights or a week later, we were in Lucerne, Switzerland, and we'd just been at an embassy, and they'd thrown out the red carpet for us. And our meetings were over, and I had that night, I hadn't been drinking in college, and I hadn't been drinking on this trip. That night, I had some champagne. And the meeting was over, and this will give you how I could have quit earlier. The meeting was over, and there were these, what do you call them? Jugs. Correct. Of champagne. And they said, you guys can take them. I walked over, picked one up, and carried it out. I hadn't been drinking, guys. What was I going to do with a bottle of champagne? Why would I want a bottle of champagne? I had a few drinks. What was I going to do with a bottle of champagne? When I came back from that, went to the Navy, came back from that, and that's when I started. And when I started, I didn't stop. I didn't drink every night. I didn't drink every day. I drank enough to get in all kinds of trouble with my family, my family, my immediate family. I hurt that, damaged that, destroyed it. It says, and this is kind of where I was. It says in the book here, under spiritual experiences, it says there's a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all argument, which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Why would I need to investigate anything? Alcohol wasn't my problem. You drank like I drank. Alcohol. I knew how to drink. But I was having problems. was having problems. If you're in the cattle business, it was 1981. I had 4 pens of cattle on feed in Fort area outside of Hereford, Texas. And we had a new president and we were having financial reversals in the world. Interest rates the world was changing. And I went from, because normally what we did is we bought cattle in the fall, gathered up a bunch of corn, paid for the corn, moved it into the next year so we didn't have to pay. I wound up marrying a gal that works for the IRS, so we didn't have to pay for her down the next year. Interest rates went to 20 or 22% or something, and I could have sold those cattle at 42 cents, and I'd have made a little money and moved the corn, but 42 wasn't enough. So I sold them for 36. Didn't work. I was drinking and thinking. My best thinking got me here. I didn't want to come to AA. I didn't know anything about AA, but I didn't need any help. Why would you need to help me? You hadn't been helping me before. Why would I need God for help? My wife and I went to the preacher, and the preacher later told my wife that he didn't know what to do. You can't make honey out of mud. I'm thinking, bullshit. Bees do it all the time. Always had an answer. Went to the psychiatrist. He sat across the room. This was the size of his office. This big. And he sat over in that corner and I sat over here. And we sat there for about 45 minutes. And he lit up a cigar at the end and he said, man, if I had what you have, I'd have it made. It was a very polite way of saying, what a bunch of BS. You lied the whole time, son. So I did start to look for help, but I didn't know where to look. I had no idea. When I did come, Edie was there, Mike was there, Pat was there, Erica was there, Brandon was there, Scott was there, and I don't know your name yet, but you were there. If you're here tonight, you've been with me. Because that's what recovery is about. Doesn't matter whether I've been recovered days, multiple days, or multiple years. The gift of recovery is right now. And that's what the second step is talking about. That's what the second step is trying to see. They have brilliantly woven this book together. We are more than 100 men who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. Wow. And you told me in those first meetings, you said we believe and so suggested, the action on these alcoholics is chronic. They can't take so much as one drink. You can't have one drink. I was pretty sure that the reason I was sleeping on the bench, we lived on the golf course, and the reason I was sleeping on the bench between the clubhouse and the golf course is because of the 26th drink. And you said, not one. Take that first drink. You have an allergy to the body, buddy. And I'm looking at you and saying, maybe you. I'm going to keep coming, but I'm going to try a couple drinks in between. I bet I can figure this out. I'll bet I can figure this out. About like organic chemistry at Iowa State. I always thought I could get ahead of the professor. You can really screw up some stuff that way. It smells like rotten eggs. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic folks must have depth and weight. You read that, you shared that, you walked that. And you asked me to come and work and walk with you. Really? Really? And you walked me through the book. You know, Bill's story. I could identify with Bill. Loneliness. It says here, I haven't, in Bill's story, it says gradually things got worse. The remorse and horror and hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. He was placed in a hospital for psych rehabilitation. This is the part I can really identify with. No words can tell the loneliness and despair I felt in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I'd met my match. Alcohol was my master. Really? And you told me that, and you carried that, and you kept carrying that, and you kept carrying me. Because I could hear the words, but I didn't understand. Because I'm the kind of guy that says, okay, let's see. Because my sponsor said, you got to read this book, and life will change. I said, okay. And this is historical. This is regular for me. Let's see. Go to A Vision for You. May God bless you and keep you until then. Got her. I read it. But reading it doesn't cut it. Reading it's not sufficient. Knowledge doesn't matter. It makes all the difference in the world to know it. But it isn't going to save my bacon. Not unless I understand. Not unless I understand. Not unless I understand. When you share what Bill shares in here, when Abby came to his kitchen and he talked to him, a friend of his who was a drunk came in, and Bill had been through the ringer. This guy comes in and talks to him and says, Bill's wanting to drink with him. He says, how's that working? And he said, no, I'm not drinking. How come? I got religion. Oh, well, my whiskey will outlast your religion. What did I say earlier? Something about intent prior to investigation. It'll outlast your religion. Abby didn't bring him religion, he brought him the spirit of the process. Where did Abby get it? Abby got it from Roland. Where did Roland get it? Roland spent a year talking to the psychiatrist in one corner of the room, in the other place. His name was Carl Jung. A year. He'd go talk to him once a week for a year. Problem was, well, he was talking to the right guy. Adler wouldn't help. Point is that we can help one another when no one else can, and it works. Because Jung said, I know a spiritual awakening, there's an opportunity for a spiritual awakening to change people. If you study that, and I work on that, I love to try to find that out. St. Augustine didn't get straightened out until he was in his late 30s. And He read from a friend of his Paul earlier, something about God and helping people and doing stuff. And it changed him. He didn't have Alcoholics Anonymous, but he quit doing what he was doing and changed completely to build a good deal of a particular religion. He spent his life. And that's what Jung was talking about. That can happen for us. That spiritual awakening that Erica was talking about changes us from the bottom of our feet to the top of our head. And Abby came back, and that's what he shared with Bill. And then Bill went back into the hospital, and he understood then what Silkworth was talking about. And Silky was saying, you can't drink. You can't take a drink. You got an allergy. What he's telling you, Bill, is that you got to have a power grid in yourself. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while we'll admit that it's injurious, we can't tell the true from the false. I can't tell you the truth about me. I'll lie when the truth is due. I'm better at that today than I used to be. Maybe it's because I'm old. I don't think so, though. I pretty much guarantee if I drank tonight, I'd be right back. Well, I wouldn't be back here. I have no idea where I'd be back to, because I never knew where I was going to be back to before. They put the second step in this program to help us, because over and over in Bill's story, and There Is a Solution, and More About Alcoholism, and We Agnostics, they weave together the understanding that I'm an alcoholic, and that I can't do this alone, that I need help, and I can get help, and I can get help from you. And you'll give me the help because in your heart, God shines through. And when I share with you my fifth step, my struggles, it isn't to share with you all the crap that I did. It's so that I can look and see, where have I been selfish and humiliating and willful and proud and arrogant? When that's not the way I want to be. I never want to be like that. I never wanted to be that way when I was a kid back there, and I certainly don't want to be that way today. And the more I drank, the worse that got. The more willful I got. So my wife had to say enough. And my sponsor and support took me golfing, took me walking, took me sailing, took me to meetings, got to go to big book studies because people said, these guys can help too. We're not alone. But they wove that through these chapters in this book so skillfully that today I can understand some. Self-centeredness, selfishness, that we think is the root of our problem. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity, we stepped on other people's trouble. This is the how and the why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. Didn't work. Next, we decided hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He's the principal. We are his agents. I think I'm going to be president of AA. First, I got to learn to be a messenger. He is the father, and I'm one of his kids. You see, I learned in that, I was taught those very things in that Lutheran church in Iowa. What I learned was that God was pretty much punishing, that I had to follow the rules or I was going to get my butt in trouble, and that it wasn't going to work. What I found out is C.S. Lewis, what did he say? I once believed that religion commanded that we do certain things to be accepted by God, but I noted that after a spiritual awakening that we are already accepted by God. All we have to do then are certain things. There are a lot of people that believe this process worked. They just do it a little differently. Good for them. Great. I didn't find that. I tried everything. I think I tried everything. Well, everything I could try. I ran out of time. I was dying. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. One time in a meeting, and Joe and Charlie were talking, because I was having trouble with that sanity thing. And Joe said, well, he said part of what they were talking about when they wrote it was being whole. If you're insane, you're missing parts. This program will make you whole. Came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I went for 3 or 4 months coming to AA because we'd gone to a marriage counselor because I was still trying to patch that up, and that didn't work. And I'm absolutely 51% of that deal. But the counselor helped me because she got me to a guy out by the airport that got me to my first AA meeting because she said, maybe there's something else here, Tom, besides just the fact that you're not in control. She got me to an AA meeting just like this. She got me to an AA meeting. And God was there just like this. Because this is it.